wonder how to compose, launch, and market an outstanding press release so that you can draw people to your work? Well, today we are going to be talking to my guest, who is an expert on how to do just that. Everything press releases and how that can impact your work in a very positive way. But you know the drill. You got to stick around to find out a lot about this information.
Welcome to Waist Up Wardrobe. I'm Christine Vartanian, an attorney turned personal style expert and image consultant. As the founder of Jade House of Style, I am passionate about unveiling the inner confidence of my clients by developing their personal style and dressing them for success. But is getting dressed up still important in our virtual world? Well, that's where my experience can help with what I call Waist Up Wardrobe. Waist Up Wardrobe is a podcast for all things you need to conduct an outstanding Zoom meeting. It's about how to dress for the camera, but it's not just about the clothes. It's about everything you need to know to show up on brand and professionally for the camera. Join me in the Waist Up Wardrobe studio to discuss how to navigate this virtual world and dominate from behind the desk.
Well, good morning, Waist Up Wardrobe Nation. Thank you for being at another episode of Waist Up Wardrobe. Remember, we're on iTunes, so if you can't watch us, you can always listen to us. And we are always here at 11:30 Pacific time in the morning with a new show on entrepreneurship and how to put your best face forward professionally on and off camera. We are also on Instagram, of course, and we are on many of the platforms where you can catch a podcast like YouTube, and you see them listed right there. And I want to just say thank you to my super awesome producer, Rick Moscoso, who's always in the green room, or not the green room, the production room, I stand corrected, making this whole show possible. And today we are going to be talking about what I think is a really critical hot topic for entrepreneurs, businesses, small or large. And our guest today is an expert at this idea of press releases and how you can use it to market your business. Sometimes it feels like a nebulous idea. You really just don't know where to start. So today we're going to get a lot of clarity around this. So let me get started by talking about my guest, Mickie Kennedy, today, who is an expert at helping small businesses, authors, and startups increase their visibility and credibility through Tier 1 press release distribution. Mickie founded E-Releases 25 plus years ago, and realizing that small businesses desperately need a press release service they can actually afford, giving them access to media and to a national newswire, all with a personal touch. Mickie does this, and he is just a fun fact about him. He lives in Baltimore County with his family and his 2 cats. He enjoys British science fiction and acknowledges unhealthy addiction to diet soda. Mickie holds an MFA in creative writing and an emphasis in poetry from George Mason University. And we are so lucky to have him here today. Please help me welcome Mickie to the Waist Up Wardrobe Show. Hi, Mickie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm excited to talk about this topic because not only will this be so good for the people listening, it is something I've been really, it's been nebulous to me. How do you even get started with a press release? Who do you go to? All the things about press releases. So this is going to be really eye-opening for so many people. So before we get started though, okay, I do this thing called the 60 seconds of getting to know you, because we want to know who we're talking to here today. Are you okay with that? They're like personal questions, but not too personal.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So they're going to be this or that questions. So my first question to you is, house cats or wild cats?
House cats.
And why so?
I feel like I love cats. So I always grown up with cats, and wild cats are a little scary.
I know, but I heard yours are pretty wild too, because they like to feud.
They do like to feud, but I think that they're still pretty tame compared to like an outdoor animal or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. Okay. How about poetry or theater?
Poetry. Yeah.
And do you have a reason for that?
I've just really been big into poetry. I appreciate theater, but poetry is something I've just been really involved with most of my life and just love.
So do you write it or do you read it or both?
I do both. I took a while off writing, growing my business, but I started back about 6 or 7 years ago, and so I've really been editing, writing, and sending stuff out. And have a book coming out, I think February 2026. So it's a while off, but small presses generally take a while.
Yeah. And that's exciting. It's so you're in the process of writing it right now?
No, I've finished that. I've actually finished 2 books, but the problem is it takes a while to find publishers and it takes a while to get published. It's usually a lot of the small presses usually take as much as 2 years, and I don't know why, but I don't feel like self-publishing. I like the respect of going through a traditional publisher, even though they're really small publishers.
I really like that idea because you hear a lot about, self-publishing being the bestseller on Amazon, all that stuff. But this sounds like it could be have a bigger impact.
Yeah, I certainly hope so.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it will. Okay, so let's get to the meat here. We really want to talk about all the information and genius you can really give us. And I just want to start with basics. Like, what is a press release? People hear about it all the time.
Sure.
So give us a little bit of the definition of what it is.
Basically, a press release is an announcement to the media. It's usually done in the third person. You might have a quote where then can talk in the first person. They're usually very simple and straightforward. They usually work with the inverted pyramid journalist style, where the most important elements are first, and you sort of go by the who, what, when, where, how, and why of your announcement. Typical announcements that people may have come across is like a new product release or service, and so a company's announcing that. The goal of the press release is not to get the press release printed or published in a lot of places, but to get an actual journalist to write an article about you, where they use the press release as the material for helping to draft that article. And so it is one of the things that, if you look at the newspaper or any magazines that you read, many of them began as press releases where a company was making an announcement, and a journalist saw that announcement and decided, hey, this would be a good company to write about, or something along those lines, and sort of get that out there. The journalists are always under deadline. They're always looking for story ideas. And the great thing about press releases is, with the newsroom access, a journalist can log into PR Newswire or Business Wire. Basically, there's a duopoly in the United States where like 95% of everything that goes over the wire goes through those two places. And it allows them to log in and see their industry feed. They can even sometimes tailor that so it's really specific to them. Like maybe they cover fashion, but maybe they don't cover retail fashion or ready to wear, so they can set keywords in there that they don't want to include. So when they see the feed, releasing something to JCPenney won't be there, or Target, or things like that. So it's very specific and tailored to what interests them. And so they then look at these headlines and decide which one to click through, and decide whether it's of interest to them, and then they transform it into an article.
Yeah. So I've oftentimes contemplated putting out a press release for my work. And I always am in this situation where I don't know where to start, like who to call, where to look. And can you give us a couple tips on that if you were just a new starter trying to figure it all out?
Right. So the first thing I would do is, figure out what it is you want to write about, and what you want the focus of the press release to be. And then you're going to want to write it according to the style or template. At our website, ereleases.com, we have lots of samples and templates. Writing a press release isn't very difficult. it's a very formulaic style. The most important thing is to focus on what it is you're writing about. I do also have a free masterclass in regards to that, because one of the biggest criticisms of press releases is that they don't work. And I will be honest, probably 97% of press releases that get issued over the wire don't result in earned media. But that being said, if you focus on the 3% of releases that do get picked up, you find lots of patterns and patterns that you can adapt to your business. And so I created a whole masterclass in regards to that. I call them strategic types of press releases. And that's at ereleases.com/plan, PLAN, completely free. And it's a small commitment, less than an hour long video with some accompanying materials. I think the last course I bought was 24 hours of videos, and I never finished it. So I didn't want this to be like really extensive or overwhelming to anyone. And it's a great place to start because if you go through that and inventory your business, you'll probably then be able to satisfy several ideas that you could focus on for a press release, and hopefully build a PR campaign of 6 to 8 releases. I do tell people that, one release may not move the needle, but if you do a campaign of 6 to 8 releases and you focus on strategic releases, you'll probably have a really great outcome with at least 2 or 3 of those releases generating earned media for you.
When you say strategic releases, are you talking about strategy of timing, strategy of language, or what exactly are you talking
Sure.
about?
So it is the strategy of what you're announcing. When it comes to, you have a new product or service that you're announcing. One of the things that I notice is probably close to 100% of those press releases we get at eReleases are, here's a new product or service, here's a list of features, and here's a page to learn more and buy. And you got to remember, a journalist is a storyteller. There's not a lot of story to be told there. And so one of the things I talk about in the video is go back and try to incorporate elements to help build a story arc for the journalist. And a really easy one is a use case study. It's very unlikely that you created a product or service and introduced it to the market that you didn't have people try it out. And, take a favorable one of those, share that company's experience or person's experience, what problem they had, what outcome they saw using the product or service, maybe have a quote from them talking very favorably. And then you can still list your features and other things, but it really helps to satisfy the story arc where a journalist can write an article. And one of the things they can do is take people through the journey of someone who utilized this new product or service and what their outcome was. And that helps to satisfy what they're looking for.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. It's like you want to see how people applied it. You want to see it in real life. You don't want to just think about the thing and the features and the gadget. You want to know, okay, why do I need this? Right?
Right. I
How
think a
does
lot of people get very myopic when it comes to PR, where they start thinking of, we have this, so let's promote this and push it forward. But they don't realize that, a journalist is a gatekeeper, and they have to determine, can I write an article on this that will either entertain or educate, or ideally both, for my audience? And you haven't really given all of the material for them to do that. And so I think that sometimes we write very selfish press releases where it's all about me. And sometimes sharing the spotlight, incorporating use case studies, or even taking public data that's out there and using it to reinforce a position that you have in your press release. For example, let's say you have a software solution in the logistics industry that you feel is really going to save transportation businesses. Introduce the fact that 67% of new transportation companies fail within the first 5 years because they can't get profitable. And one of the main ways that you can do that is utilizing the software. So it really puts the stakes as to why your software is so important. So look for opportunities like that to put in there, and it actually helps to bolster you, but it's one of these things that you don't immediately think of. And as a result, so many press releases get pushed that just don't have the necessary information to make you sort of irresistible to the media.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense once you learn how to do it, right? Because you think that you know what to do, but we don't know unless we really get these kind of tips. And the idea of storytelling is so powerful. And because people are more interested in reading something that has a beginning, middle, and end that is, interesting, rather than, technical details about something that they don't know if they need it or not, right? Yeah. Why do I need this thing, and how does it change people's lives? That's what I want to know. And give me real people, because I don't want, I don't want made up characters or hypotheticals.
Right.
Right.
And if you look at like a show like Shark Tank, and I mention them because a lot of the people that appear on Shark Tank use us to announce their episode before it airs. The producers recommend us to them. And if you notice, one of the first things they do when they get out there is introduce themselves and share a story about them and their journey of, how this product or company came to be. Often it's inspirational, it's sharing a vulnerability. They may have gone through a divorce or lost a parent, and maybe they had a hobby and that they did with that parent. It's some way to emotionally sort of get some empathy, and it's a human interest element, because at the end of the day, people prefer to feel for other humans. We don't really have a lot of emotional ties usually to logos and corporations and names, but we do care about people. And I think that's one of the reasons that every time someone comes out on the stage there, that it's a way to immediately bridge them to you and to get you invested in them and to care.
Yeah. When I took a kind of a writing class, it was more about, pitching, like us talking from stage, and how you compose um your topic and end with an offer and so forth. It was always, you always start with a heart story. You start with the heart, right? Because that's how people get interested, and that's how you can draw them in, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings, right? We want
Right.
to be able to connect and relate to each other. So the heart story often connects to somebody in the audience, and they can relate to it, or they can feel and the angst and the drive and the enthusiasm, motivation of why you're creating what you're creating. So that really does, it gets people like listening, I think, that hook. It's the hook, right?
Right.
Um, you said you get hired a lot to work with the Shark Tank contestants, or people that come up on inventors, I would say. Um, Tell us one of your favorites that you've worked
Um, we've worked with Squatty Potty. They did many
with.
releases with us.
Yeah.
They're really fun and playful, and they really recognize that building a foundation of earned media really helps you later when you go to paid advertising, because once people have seen you in the media, both on the show and in other platforms and publications like Inc. magazine and business magazines and places like that, that it's easier to get a convert once you start doing paid advertising. And so they're always fun to work with, because they're very playful and open to lots of suggestions and trying and testing lots of different things.
Yeah. But when you are prepping these contestants or these inventors for Shark Tank, that's not really a press release, right? That's something different.
So we don't prep them for the show.
Okay,
We do a press release announcing their episode before it airs.
got it. I think you said that. I just wanted to clarify, because I
But we do work with many of them off after that episode's aired to get other things that they're working on and announcing.
yeah, yeah. Well, once they work with you once, I'm sure they kind of want it again.
Sure.
So I know we talked about storytelling, and how important that is when you're, trying to get a journalist to write about your product or work. Uh, so that's a really great tip. But do you have any other tips on sort of that winning press release? Anything additional that should be paid attention to?
Yeah, I think that I mentioned loosely that putting a publicly available number in there, like a data point, can really help. If there's a certain failure rate in your industry within the first 5 years. But there's also other data points that are just out there, and sometimes just putting it together from lots of different places can really, make your press release seem to be extremely relevant. And then also you can author your own data. One of the strategic press releases that I talk about that anyone can do is to do a survey within your industry. Uh, Put together a survey. I like SurveyMonkey because I like the way it analyzes data. But I usually like 4 questions per page, and I usually do 3 to 4 pages, so 12 to 16 questions. If you have some crazy left field questions, I usually leave them for the last page because you'll still have all their responses before they get there. That being said, I haven't really found that it turns people off a lot. But one of the questions we asked in a survey, it was for a Pennsylvania local auto repair shop, and they were looking for automotive trade publications to link to them. And so I was just like, I think the only way that that's going to work is to do a survey within your industry. We put together the survey. On the last page, we just had a fun question. It said, what's the strangest thing a customer left in their car while being repaired? And it was an open field where people could just write things in. We then took that link and approached a independent auto repair shop trade association, and they were members of it. But you don't have to be for this to work. And you just approach them and say, "Hey, could you send this link to your members? We're looking to get at least 100 responses, and in exchange for that, we will mention you in the press release we'll be issuing over the wire." The great thing about smaller and independent trade associations is that they don't get a lot of media attention. So a lot of them will see this as an opportunity for them to get media pickup as well. And I'd say about 2/3 of the time, the first association we approach will say yes. And they'll then send the link out. And if you don't get 100 responses, I usually go back to them and say, "Hey, as you know, I mentioned we needed 100 responses. Could you maybe push this on social media, maybe do another email send? We really want to get as close to 100 as possible." And they want it to succeed, so they'll do that. And then you look at the results and figure out what was the biggest aha moment or shock or surprise of the survey. If there's one question here that would really just generate a huge amount of interest in your industry, what is it? And you want to make sure that you are asking timely questions, interesting questions. If there's trends going on in your industry, if your industry is being affected by something, like a lot of people are affected by AI and have concerns about AI, maybe asking questions around that. There's also a lot of workplace culture issues coming out of the pandemic, people not wanting to go back into the office. How do you solve that? How do you maintain a workplace culture? Things along those lines could be good questions. But you can also just look at, if you were going to a conference or a trade show, what are the things that you'd want to sit and ask other people in your industry? Like, hey, have you noticed that X, Y, and Z, net 30 is now turning into net 90? People are really slow paying. All of these could be questions that you could ask around the economic health of your industry, or maybe even the country at large. And then you're going to focus the press release on, I usually like to focus on that one question. Maybe there's room for, focusing on a second question, but, really explore that first question. You're going to provide a quote of why you felt that the numbers skewed that particular way. Like maybe there's a lot of anxiety around AI. You could say, hey, yeah, people are always afraid of what's new. And while I don't believe, that 67% of people are going to be erased by AI over the next 5 years, I do believe that those who don't figure out how to utilize AI to help them in this industry may be at a huge disadvantage and find themselves, having difficulty maintaining or keeping a job in the industry. Yeah. And so you just want to, say something that makes you stand out, have a little bit of authority, and, you are an expert. You're releasing this survey. You're the author of it. And generally, when you then send that out over the wire, we usually get anywhere between 8 and 14 articles. It really does extremely well. I think the least we've ever had is 4 articles. And so if you're ever looking for a slam dunk type of press release that generally always works, that survey one is it. And I know it seems like a big ask, but if you just break it down procedurally, it's not that very difficult. And it is a great way that when you do get these articles, it really makes you stand out as an expert within your industry. And, a lot of people feel like, oh, I didn't earn this, but it's really just a matter of claiming it more than anything else, and then just standing behind it.
Yeah. I love that exercise of a survey to kind of figure out what would be a hot topic, right? That is really such a great idea, um, because then you kind of know what people are thinking and what you can address that, right?
Right.
You mentioned AI, which I want to kind of go there. Is there a way to use AI to really be, help you compose your press release in a way that's authentic?
Yes, I think that if you are not a great writer, feel free to utilize AI to help you write a press release. Certainly read it, make sure it makes sense, make sure it's factual. But my approach to AI is never go to AI for an idea for a press release. AI has been trained on the internet of press releases. I've already mentioned that 97% of press releases fail. So if you just have it come up with the ideas for the release, it's going to be a mediocre release. It's going to be one of the 97% that fails. But if you approach it and say, hey, I have this strategic press release, this really great idea, and then you tell it a little bit about you, your business, your website, because I think that the latest Chat GPT 4.0 does have the ability to have looked at websites and maybe familiar with yours. But provide that background information, give it the strategic idea that you're looking for, and then don't ask it to write that press release, but ask it, how would you best structure a press release on this?
Yeah.
And then I sort of get it to complete it piecemeal. Okay, let's start with the headline on this press release. Give me 10 different versions of a headline for this story. And in between each headline, pause and think for a couple of seconds. I don't know why, but when you just have it generate 10 of one thing, they're all very similar. But if you ask AI to stop and pause between things, I think it does, because it really will try more nuanced and enhanced ways. So asking it to pause and stop along the way is a really great way to get better outcomes with it. And it's also why I then approach it paragraph by paragraph, because I find I get a much better result breaking it down and having it say, okay, now we're going to work on the first opening paragraph. What do you think would be the great opening paragraph for this? And then if you're happy with that, you can then say, give me 2 or 3 different versions of this paragraph. If you're not happy with that paragraph, you can say, hey, I really feel that this paragraph isn't mentioning X, Y, and Z, which I feel are really important. Could you write a paragraph that incorporates that? And then, just, it seems like it's difficult, but it really isn't. The longest I've ever had going back and forth like this with AI is 22 minutes to do a really great press release. And I find that the press release you then get is usually really good. Now, the area that I have found that AI is not great is the quote. And so I will then tell it, hey, the quote that you have, could you write it more powerfully, stronger? I really want it to stand out. And if someone was to remove it, that the resulting paraphrasing would show a huge loss. And sometimes it could really come together, but sometimes I really have to play with it. And again, I'll ask, okay, give me 10 quotes on this subject. Pause between each quote and reflect, how can I make the quote stronger but different than the previous quote? And again, if you ask it to slow down a little bit in between options, it will generally give you much better and diverse different things to work with. And then sometimes I'll take bits and pieces from one quote and another. And I usually never want more than 2 sentences as a quote. And at the, sometimes 1 is ideal, but really just spend a little bit of time there. And again, I usually can get all of this done in 22 minutes. And if you're all new to this, I think you can still come up with a really great press release in less than an hour. And the great thing about AI press releases is it's not the end result. I personally would never put a blog post on my website that was written by AI. I wouldn't want an article on my website or any website that was written by AI. but we're writing a press release. We're not writing the finished article. And we are ideally looking for a journalist to then transform what we wrote and turn it into an article in their own language. And so I feel like press release is completely appropriate to utilize AI without any concerns that people might have about content that is going to be on your website or places where the public, by and large, sees them and interacts with them.
Yeah. It's interesting. So this AI conflict, right? Yeah, where you really need to use the AI as a tool to enhance your own work, right? Rather than have it create it for you, because then you're just going to get something generic. Anybody who enters that same query or positions that same conversation with AI is probably going to get something similar. If you want something custom or unique, you're going to have to give it more information. I love the advice on pausing. Now, you said, do you ask it to pause or you just give it to bit by bit?
I actually say, now give me 10 headlines, but between each headline, stop and pause for a couple of seconds and think to yourself, how can I make this next headline stronger, better, and more distinct from the previous headline? And it does that. I mean, and it still churns it out very fast. It doesn't wait several seconds, but it does. It is much slower than if you just ask, give me 10 headlines on this press release, that idea that we have, because those turn out to be very similar. And
Yeah.
if you ask it to reflect, go back, try to make it more distinctive, and and try to differentiate itself, it really does. And so I think that sometimes AI just wants to solve it so fast that it does a very generalized approach. But if you ask it to sort of just to slow down,
take its time.
Yeah,
Take your
it does
time
work.
into it. Yeah, it's funny because exactly. That's the AI. Your AI robot is thinking, I want to be as efficient as possible for my person, right? And
Right.
so they're like doing it as fast as possible because that's what they're designed to do. But at the same time, I guess it's interesting that kind of setting it up that way makes a difference, rather than when you were saying that, I was thinking, oh, okay, so I'll tell him to be one quote and then reflect on it and then another quote, but you're actually telling it to the action to take.
Yeah,
So
give me
now,
all 10, but in between each one you give me, stop, reflect, and try to determine how you can give a completely distinct but strong alternative headline for the next headline.
yeah, no, that's really good advice. And we wouldn't have known that if we haven't heard somebody actually try that. So thank you for that. Tell me, how can a small business get like free local media coverage, if that's possible, and how they could seek that out?
Right. So whenever someone calls our office and says they're only looking for local media, we always tell them, you do not need to use a service like e-releases. You don't need to use a paid service. You don't need a publicist. The easiest media for you to get is local media, and it's easiest to get yourself. And I feel like this is one of those things that seems like it's daunting, but it's really not if you break it down. If you think about it, for most people in their market, their local market, there's probably less than a dozen people who could write about you or cover you. And, start doing your homework and build your Rolodex. You're going to look at your local paper and determine who generally covers your industry, and then get their email address. And if it's not online, you call and ask. These are not celebrities. These are members of the community. They should be accessible. They may ask why you want their email address. You just say, hey, I'm a local business and I have a really great story and I know that they cover this industry and I would like to get this person's email address. They may patch you through to them and rather have you get it directly from them, or they may be willing to give it to you there. But at the end of it, you will get it. And if the person's like, hey, you just pitched me over the phone, I'd say, hey, I could do that about this, but I'd love to have your email address because I do better in writing than I do, on the spot over the phone. And again, they will give it to you. I have rarely had anybody have problems with that. You're going to do the same thing if there's a business magazine or a business newspaper as well that would be relevant. Find out who covers your industry. if there's a couple of people, pick the one that you feel most aligned to. I would never pitch both people at the same time if there's multiple people. But if you find I've really been trying with this person and they're never receptive, then you could try the other person going forward. When it comes to TV and radio, you're looking for programs like on the news that maybe they do something called now for a special local spotlight or whatever it is that you feel would be really appropriate. And when you call and speak to that news channel, you're going to ask who is the producer or booker of that segment you've seen. And it may take a little back and forth to figure out who that is. And then you're just going to get the email address of that producer or booker and pitch yourself. And so once you've done this with all of the local media, and I also say do not discount weekly free papers. Now, where I live in the Baltimore suburbs, we have like a lot of these little community papers that usually are for, these neighborhoods over here. And there's another one over there, and they're weekly free papers. They are so focused on advertising and filling that up with ads that they often do not have content. So if you approach them with a really good story idea, and when it comes to them, this is an exception, offer to write the actual article for them, they will gladly take it. I've had many people who've also had columns that they were able to develop with these local papers. Works really well with chiropractors, dentists, dental health, health and fitness type people. And when you go to them, never offer a weekly column. And they'll probably want a weekly column because it's content they can count on every week. But I always say it's not worth it. Do a monthly column and maybe have the first column available for them and say, hey, I'd love to do a column. Get your name out there, get your business out there, make sure that you're allowed to have a sentence either at the bottom or something that talks about you as the author and your business. But it's a great way to stand out, put together some content that is really basic, good content for the community to have, but it's a great way to position yourself and for people to get to know you. And again, it's like 10 to 12 pieces you'll be doing a year, and they're very simple type articles that you're going to be pitching to them. They really like stuff that's like top 10 or little chunky paragraphs with headers for each one of them. So it's not very difficult writing, but those work really, really well. And then, as you have ideas, you're going to send an email to all of these people on your Rolodex. It doesn't have to be a press release. Doesn't have to be an article, except for those weekly papers. I think that's a really great way to get content to them, because they are just starved for content. And whatever you have that you feel is a really good idea. Say, hey, I'm a local business, and I've noticed in my industry a lot of people talking about going green and being environmentally sound. And as a local dry cleaner, I would love to share with you all the things that we are doing to make sure that the chemicals we use are healthy and they're not bad for you or the environment. And just a very short thing. Maybe put a quote in there. I mentioned before that a journalist can build a great article around a great quote, and so maybe go ahead and have a very soundbite quote that's very strong that you've gotten there, so they can just look at that and go, wow, okay, I could really build a good story around this. You may find that as you pitch these, that initially the first 2 or 3 you don't get any response to, but my experience has been that usually the more times you reach out to these people and the more you become front of mind, the more receptive they are to you over time. And usually after a year or so of doing this, even if they've never covered you, you'll find they might reach out to you. They'll be working on a story. They're looking to plug in a local business, and all of a sudden they remember you pitched them 5 times over the past year, and they go and find you and reach out to you and say, hey, I'd love to talk to you about this. And then all of a sudden that's an opportunity for you. And once you've done this a couple of years, you will find that you will just get picked up on a very regular basis. I noticed this 15, 20 years ago that in the Baltimore Sun, it was the same little ad agency that was always getting into articles. And if it was an HR issue, they talk about what this company was doing that was very new and novel. If it was something else, they'd talk to this company. So I actually reached out to them and talked to them. And they said, oh my God, we just reached out to this poor journalist again and again, pitching them for a year, and nothing happened. And all of a sudden they start reaching out to us, and they said now they just know that when they are in the middle of a story, that they can call us, get a really great quote quickly, and that we'll drop everything to help them build out us as an example in a story that they're working on. And they just love to work with us because we're so easy. And that's something that you can develop locally, just by, that little Rolodex of under a dozen people. And if you're in a very small place, it might be, 4 or 5 people. But again, it works best and most authentically if it's just you pitching yourself.
Yeah, no, that is such great advice, and I actually didn't expect all that goodness in one answer, but that was so good. Mickie, this has been so amazing. I'm going to go back and listen to this recording because there's so much great tips there on how to really make this work for you. At the end of every show, we do a little summary of the show. And well, before I get there, with the hashtag Press and Shine, you are going to give everybody the link, or we're going to put it in the comments, the link to your masterclass that you do as a gift for people. Can you give us the link one more time? I think
sure. It's ereleases.com/plan, PLAN.
Okay, we have that in the comments for anybody who's interested. And so as we wrap up the show, if there's one takeaway, just one soundbite, one takeaway, what would that be for the audience to take away from this topic about press releases?
I think the biggest thing is that you don't have to sort of have an imposter syndrome. I mean, you may feel that you're too small or non-newsworthy to matter, but really, you would be surprised that just by doing a little creative brainstorming, focusing on strategic types of approaches to PR, that you can really make this work for anybody of any size. And being small and unknown is not a disadvantage when it comes to the media, and you don't need to have high priced, publicists and PR firms representing you.
That's great to know. And the tool you gave us is going to be really valuable. And that's your masterclass tool. The link is ereleases.com/plan, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And then we have that in the comments. And how about just one tip? I know we've talked about a lot, but one really outstanding tip that people can utilize.
I think the biggest tip is to just think outside the box. If you look at what everyone else is doing, that's a great indicator of what to avoid. Everybody else is doing personnel change press releases, and the media doesn't care that you have a new associate HR person. Look at what they're not talking about, and figure out what the gaps are, the blind spots in your industry. What are they omitting and failing to talk about? Often those are the things that you can own and bring to visibility and generate a lot of media attention.
That's a really good tip, because people tend to talk about what they hear other people talk about, and then they just kind of get lost in the shuffle, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's really great. And finally, I'm somebody who wants to put out a press release, and I've always found it a little scary, a little nebulous, not knowing where to start. Give me one action item I can do today that's easy, that can get me started.
Just visit ereleases.com. Look at some of the samples. I think they're linked to the samples in our footer. Once you see how innocuous and non-threatening these simple press releases are, I think your next step would be to go to the masterclass, or even start a chat with our office and go from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mickie, for all this amazing information. Such, you took this topic that often intimidates people and you kind of broke it down for us. And your whole attitude about it being so easy, so effortless, that's what's going to get people started doing this to help get their work out there. So thank you for that. And there you have it, Waist Up Wardrobe Nation, another episode on looking your best and being your best with your best face forward on camera and your best foot forward in business, and just being the best entrepreneur you can be. Now, about press releases, go get one done, and I'll see you again next week at 11:30 Pacific time right here. Hey, Mickie. How's
Hi.
you?
I thought it went well.
Oh, it was fantastic, and so much great information there. I just amazing. Thank you so much for accepting to be on the show and making the show better with the information you've given us. So, any feedback in terms of even constructive feedback, constructive as criticism is good. We take that well. So, anything you'd like to highlight for me?
I don't think so. I thought it went really well. I was so fortunate that they finished the mowing before I went on.
Yeah, when things like that happen, we just try and make it part of the show. That's
Right.
the beauty of being live. So yeah. But thank you for being here and thank you for all the information. And I hope to keep in touch with you. I'm trying to build a community of all these amazing experts that I've been interviewing on my show. And I really want to create a community where people can come together and partner, just outstanding entrepreneurs and experts I've really gotten to know through Podmatch. So if you allow me, I will send you the email introducing the idea. And if you're into it, you can opt in and we can all be friends.
Sounds good.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
Rick, are you there? There he is.
I am here.
All right. Anything for Mickie or that you want to tell him, or are we all good?
No, I think everything was good.
Okay.
Yeah, everything was good.
All right. Thank you, Mickie. And this will live on the Facebook page, Waist Up Wardrobe, indefinitely. And then we also are multiple platforms. So, yeah.
Perfect.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Mickie.
Okay. Nice talking
All right.
with both of you.
You too. Take care.
All right. I have to do the speedy recap quickly because I have to. move on. Yeah, I have a 1 o'clock appointment I have to get to. So, all right, ready? Huh? You're ready. Okay. Ever wonder how to launch, market, and release an outstanding press release? Ever wonder how to compose, launch, and release a press release? Okay. Ever wonder how to compose, launch, and market an outstanding press release so that people can be attracted to your work? Good.
Yeah.
I know it sounded short, but I think it's to the point. So
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah, okay. What was the title of the show this time? Press relief.
How to press release.
How to press release. Okay. In episode in Waist Up Wardrobe, episode 164, How to Press Release, we talk all about just this topic, press releasing. Okay, I'll try again. In Waist Up Wardrobe, episode 164, How to Press Release, the Waist Up Wardrobe weekly wrap up in a nutshell, boiled down to this. The main takeaway here is always remember you are not too small to ever do a press release. Don't have that imposter syndrome where you think that nobody's going to consider what you have to say newsworthy. A tip to remember is think outside of the box. Think about people in your industry and what they're talking about, and don't talk about that. Talk about something they're not talking about so that you can be interesting and you can stand out. A tool our guest gave us today was his very own website and masterclass, ereleases.com/plan. Okay.
//
// Okay. A tool our guest gave us is called the ereleases.com/plan. And on that site, you are going to find a masterclass, a link to a master. Okay, I'll start over again. A tool our guest gave us was ereleases/ a key tool our guest gave us was ereleases.com/plan. And that site will give you a masterclass that you can listen to. It's a very short one that can give you how to get jump started into creating your own. Okay, start over again. A useful tool that our guest gave us is called ereleases.com/plan. Visit that link and see a masterclass on how to create and compose a really strategic press release, so that you can really attract people to your business. And finally, the main action item here, the action item. And finally, action item is actually going to that link, because you're going to find a lot of information that's going to give you a methodical, strategic, easy to digest method and process as to how to really create your press release and get it out there. Good?
Okay.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We need to set up a date, but can we go off